What's a TV show you loved but gave up? Once upon a time. Start cramming in every Disney character you can think of, recast a spell to reset things because it got out of hand, and make sure every villain gets an eventual sympathetic portrayal. The Walking Dead, first season was amazing and second season was good. After that it became a completely different show and I gave it up. Under the Dome. Really interesting concept. Semi-cool pilot. Terrible acting. It went from a suspense show to I have to watch this and pretend it's a comedy show, just to get through it. Heroes Season 1 was great. Unfortunately it went right over a cliff in Season 2. Supernatural, I liked how in the beginning each episode was an independent story, later seasons it turned into a soap opera. NCIS. I could handle Zivil leaving, it was sad but I got over it. Wasn't a huge fan of the new character but she was growing on me. Then they brought in other new characters who felt like cardboard cutout people, it started wearing on me. Finally, Tony left. There was nothing left to keep me after that. Frowning face. Arrested Development. The first 3 seasons were great, and then Netflix bought it and added 3 more seasons. I made it through season 4 and into season 5 when I quit. I wish Netflix would have left well enough alone on that one. Also Flash, which I used to love. Vikings and The Walking Dead. House of Cards. Riverdale, I loved the first season. I thought the second season was pretty good. I started the third season and thought it was absolute garbage. It was so unrealistic and I stopped watching. Misfits. Since the finale of Game of Thrones aired, I have had zero interest in the series. Don't want to do a rewatch, don't recommend the show to people, just absolutely zero interest. And it really shits me, because seasons 1 to 4 are some of the best TV ever made. Trailer Park Boys should have ended at 7 seasons. Everyone with me, Grey's Anatomy. Prison Break, had an incredible first 2 seasons. I barely made it through the 3rd and abandoned before the 4th. Before it was cancelled, Sleepy Hollow. I loved the dynamic between Ichabod and Lieutenant Mills, but then it got weird. And then bad. And then killed of Lieutenant Mills and replaced her with someone completely random in another city. What the fuck did you do, Sleepy Hollow? I also had the "oh fuck this I'm done" reaction to a crossover episode of How to Get Away with Murder. Arrested Development. First 3 seasons were great, possibly the funniest show I'd ever seen up until that point. Season 4 had its moments but the quality and consistency definitely took a nosedive. Season 5 just seems like the magic is lost and I don't think it's coming back. iZombie. Loved the first 3 seasons. 4th was slower but still decent. The 5th. The problem the show always had was trying to carry too many plots at once, and the 5th was just too bloated. Stopped watching halfway through. Rose McIver and Rahul Kohli are both fucking terrific though, they deserve to hit the big time. Big Bang Theory. After they made Sheldon a caricature of himself I could only take so much. It really went from a show for geeks to a show about geeks. Shameless. American Horror Story. None of the newer seasons lived up to the first 2 seasons for me. How I Met Your Mother. The premise was interesting, but it got too tangled up with other people pairing off and one person pretending to date and propose to someone else, just for it to be a prank. Ted remained an insufferable goof who never learned the difference between introspection and self-deprecation while also constantly hanging in relationships he knew would never work. I watched the final season, hoping for some closure. As for the ending, it was decided in the beginning. All that commentary from the kids was done in the first couple years/seasons because it didn't make sense for them to age, since it was technically the present. The writers apparently hated the finale, but we stuck between a rock and a hard place because they couldn't unage those actors for a different ending. TBH, I don't think the fandom would have minded recasting the kids for a different ending. The Simpsons. After so many seasons, I just got sick of it. Haven't watched it again in years. ER died with Mark Green. For me, the one that really jumps out is Heroes. The first season was must-see TV, the Save the Cheerleaders stuff, but the writers' strike really ruined it and I made it halfway through the second season before I gave up. I have a few, but mind you, I will still watch a series after I have given up on it due to unrealistic superstitions and general respect/investment for the series. My biggest ones are Modern Family. Jokes became routine with little standing development and too much of an effort to play it safe. Burn Notice, sad face. Netflix Defenders series, they weren't bad, after all is said and done. I mean, look. Iron Fist Season 2 was cool. It is just off. I'm not saying it couldn't have been better and I stayed with them because of the comic tie-in, but they weren't unwatchable. Luke Cage, just couldn't get into the second season. First season was great, think it mainly has to do with the villains. Cottonmouth. I mean, Mr. Stokes really sold that show to me. Dexter, it went downhill fast after season 4, I gave up partway through the final season, and judging by the reactions to the finale, I didn't miss much. Sons of Anarchy, I wouldn't say I loved it, but the issues that I had with the first few seasons just got worse and worse, and I ended up giving it up. My main issues being that the main character Jax is the definition of a Mary Sue and that the storyline that should have been wrapped up in the first 3 seasons just kept on going. I think the problem there was that Ron Perlman's character was too popular to kill off when they should have for the story, so they dragged his story out unnecessarily. Also, they went to Ireland and that season was a mistake. Oh, and I know it's over, but Skins. The first 2 seasons were just magic, made me feel things I can't describe. Here are all the themes from S1 to S6. And in my opinion, the first 2 seasons were the best. As the show was butchered, so was the theme. Also, this was purely about the British version, the American version didn't happen. Imo. Scrubs. When JD left, it was over. I watched old school X-Files almost religiously when I was a kid. Mulder and Scully were my heroes. But the last few years of the series, it just kinda started getting sloppy and I lost interest. The recent attempt at a reboot wasn't all that compelling, in my opinion. The Strain. It had an absolutely amazing premise. How would the CDC and a scientific mind approach a vampire outbreak? Looking at it from a clinical perspective while also being a damn horrifying show had me hooked. Then, after a couple of seasons, it started getting really weird, like vampire half-breeds and ridiculous mommy issues to move a plot. I lost interest and never picked it back up. Outlander after the episode-long rape scene. Burn notice. I liked the whole super spy on a budget stuff, and the here's some basic field craft bits, but after the third or fourth time they said we're sorry Michael, the explanation you want is in another castle, I just gave up. Archer. The Office. After Michael left, I lost most of my interest. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I enjoyed it at first, but I started becoming more picky about which Marvel media I consumed after my time became more limited and the show started to feel stale. But I still think the show's crossover with Captain America, the Winter Soldier was brilliantly done. Suits. Love Harvey and Mike Ross, but the show wasn't the same since Mike and Rachel left. Dexter, Bones, and NCIS all managed to cross the line from believable to not believable, and I had to drop them because I couldn't immerse myself in the show anymore. Others have as well, these are just the ones that I thought of first. Oddly, Law and Order never has lost its appeal. Last Man Standing replaced Mandy, switched networks, and just became awful. Red vs Blue. I love the first 13 seasons, but the others, not so much. I mean, they are good, but not at the same level. Shameless. Enjoyed it up until season 5-ish. After that I had no empathy left for that family. Glee. I was obsessed with the first season. It was so unique and fun, and the characters were diverse. I think I binged the entire first season in a couple of days. Then, season 2 happened, and it was like Ryan Murphy said, great, people love the show. Let's make the rest of it garbage. Orange is the New Black. Arrow. I could write a lot about this show, but I'll spare you all of that. To be brief, seasons 1 and 2 were phenomenal. Season 3 started alright and then took a nosedive and did not recover in season 4. Killing Laurel was probably my final straw. People said season 5 was good, but after Laurel I was just done. Also The Walking Dead. I stuck it out longer than most. I see a lot of people left after Glenn died. I left after they killed off Carl. Unnecessary. The Man in the High Castle started so good. Big Bang Theory stopped after Amy Farrah Fowler came on board. I felt like the science and so-called nerdy stuff became less relevant, while geeky stuff, pop culture stuff like sci-fi movies, TV shows, gaming, or geeky entertainment, became more and more prevalent. Also too much of trying to make Sheldon normal. Supernatural. Fun episodes, monsters, and a good overarching plot up until season 4 or so. The Impala is my dream car. It's filmed in my area. Jared and Jensen regularly go to a Starbucks near me, and they are delightful people. Despite all this, I still can't keep watching the show. The writing has devolved and it's gotten formulaic. Plus, once you beat hell and heaven it kinda takes away the urgency. I've forced my way to season 7, but it took a lot of effort, so I've given up. That 70s show. First, after Eric left. Then again when it turned out that the guy who played Hyde was a rapist twat in real life. Can't enjoy the show anymore. I don't know if it counts, but I'm not a fan of anime, but got hooked on Sword Art Online's first season. The MMO world building and characters were done so extremely well. After that, it felt like the series was all about emotions and less about the world. They talked so freaking much with so little action and badass moments that I just had to give up. The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead. It was my fave series, but after something, I won't spoil, it's awful. It's not even Walking Dead anymore. Bones. Once they started baking car ads into the show, I was out. I'm okay with product placement, but don't put an actual sales pitch in and try to pass it off as legit dialogue. I'm in the middle of Mr. Robot Season 2. It's not great, first season was brilliant, this second one I'm sticking with but not enjoying it. I'm told Season 3 and 4 are much better. I was a die-hard X-Files person, an X-File, maybe, but stopped around Season 7 or 8. And didn't bother with the follow-up movie or series. The Handmaid's Tale. It just left me in a terrible mood whenever I watched, and at a certain point was just slow torture porn. Gave up a couple episodes into Season 3. Supernatural. Sherlock. Each episode in the first 2 series was a really good, stylish, self-contained detective story with great performances. I found that from Series 3 onwards it was just pandering to the hardcore fans rather than actually making a good show. They kind of screwed themselves over by creating so much hype at the end of Series 2. All in all, it went from being a detective show to a soap opera about a detective. The Blacklist. The Simpsons. It's still my favorite show of all time, but at this point there are more seasons I haven't seen than ones I have. Definitely SpongeBob. It's unwatchable now. Voltron, legendary defender. After they did Loader Dirty in Season 6, I just noped out of there. Then Season 7 plus 8 came out and there was discourse for months about how bad they were. There's still discourse in this house from my partner who foolishly watched them, and he still sometimes rants about them. It was a train wreck. Misfits. I couldn't do past Season 3. Same for Glee. On the verge of giving up Supernatural. Show was a pretty cool demon hunting thing for the first couple seasons, albeit very cheesy. After a certain point, though, it took a dive off the deep end into being purely demon vs angel type shit. S4 and now S5 are all the same shit just being regurgitated. Also, Arrested Development. Fuck Season 4 and 5. That show should have stayed dead. Criminal Minds because I got too paranoid. Lost. I know the defenders are there, but let's get this out of the way. Lost isn't worth watching past Season 3, maybe 4 if you are brave. I did finish watching the entire show and I felt so burned by its final and last 2 seasons that I had no interest in returning to it. Like, I kind of felt so betrayed by its finale that I will regularly rewatch shows, and Lost is one that gave me no urge or desire to see it through again. No, it's not because the deep story and mythology was ruined for me at the conclusion. It was because on the conclusion wasn't worth returning to. The build-up of 7 seasons just awkwardly petered out as the writers tried to end the story with no idea how to tie up all the loose ends they created. They wrote themselves into a corner and couldn't figure how to get out of it. This is the problem with the mystery box approach to storytelling. There is nothing wrong with letting characters in your writing grow, but the problem was that they spent more time writing the world than the characters, and then they didn't know what to do with the world. Their solution to closing a character's arc was to kill the character in the weakness and most unsatisfying ways possible. Lost for me is a great example of peak TV gone totally wrong, and for as game-changing as it was for serial TV shows, its influence was totally wasted. The Arrowverse shows. Arrow had a great 5th season after 3 and 4 were absolute trash, but I was getting bored in season 6. I probably would have continued, but The Flash had gotten so bad that it repelled me from everything. Between Iris's whole "We Are the Flash" line, her character as a whole, the moment when all the female characters literally put their hands together and said #feminism, and the overall corniness of the main villain, I just couldn't take any of it seriously anymore. Doctor Who. Loved the show, just stopped watching it. Fringe. The first 3 seasons of that show are a prime example of the power of long-form storytelling, but it became clear in the 4th season that the showrunners had no clue how to progress the story. These shows I enjoyed, but got bored of as the seasons went on. Supernatural, The Walking Dead, The Blacklist, The Flash, Arrow. All of them started out exciting, but became either boring, repetitive, or outlandish. Outlandish as in, you could tell the writers were scrambling to come up with new stories. Arrested Development, the original 3 seasons were amazing, but then Netflix botched everything up. Walking Dead. Okay, we get it. You raise our hopes up that things will be okay and then you kill a main character, and repeat the process over and over. Avatar, Legend of Korra. Been meaning to go back and finish it. The 100, first 2 seasons were great, but they really lost me in the 3rd season, the way they went with the story just seemed pointless. New Girl and any of the Shonda Rhimes shows. I haven't given up, but the number of episodes of Friends is daunting. While I think Arrested Development is one of the best shows ever made, halfway through season 4 I just couldn't do it anymore. Sort of a special situation because the show was done and resurrected years later as opposed to Netflix or something saving it shortly after being cancelled. It just lost so much when it finally came back. Obligatory Simpsons mention as well. Seasons 3 to 9 were peak Simpsons for me and then a slow decline. Season 12 I simply stopped making it a point to watch every Sunday. Suits. So much repetition in the storyline and dialogue. And they're all such terrible human beings who never change. Modern Family also pretty much for the same reasons. Weeds. The first 2 seasons while the Botwins were in Agrestic were really good. Once they left that town the storylines just got ridiculous. It seems like the writers were thinking hold my beer while thinking of who could have the worst disaster each season. The 100. The Walking Dead. Rick's last show was the series finale for me, haven't watched it since. To me it's over. Left Walking Dead after season 7, left Fear the Walking Dead after season 2. Left Evil after 3 episodes. Left Unicorn after 1 episode. Left Voice, Idol, AGT years ago. There's too much good stuff out there to waste time on so-so shows. The Walking Dead, just like everyone else on this thread. Fringe. The first 2 seasons or so were really interesting detective stuff with some unique great concepts. Then it turned into a multidimensional mind-bending drama and I wasn't ready to wrap my head around it. Also Westworld. The first season was amazing, the second one dropped in the middle. Given that the first season is a pretty complete story on its own, wasn't even really mad about this one. Going into the second I was thinking to myself, what could they possibly add to this, and yeah, they couldn't really add much. Gravity Falls, I'm one episode away but I didn't want it to end so I stopped watching. Blue's Clues just wasn't the same after Steve went to college. Walking Dead made it about halfway through series 8 before giving up. Once Upon a Time. After I realized it was basically just a Disney live action in TV show form, I lost interest. Riverdale was great until they added that shitty supernatural dumpster fire of season 3. Black Mirror, the 2-season produced by Channel 4 were great, when it was bought by Netflix, or something similar, it was ruined. It went from warning us of dangers few imagined from just exaggerating ones that are already here. The Office when Michael Scott leaves. Psychology binged the shit out of the first couple seasons and honestly it was never really that good but it turned to real dog shit the last few seasons.